Hey guys, so we interrupt the usual Chills with TFC episode with a special feature of the Coconut Avenue. We're going to go into episode 2 of the Coconut Avenue today, where we will focus on leasehold properties. What are the characteristics of the leasehold property, and are 99 years condo the same as HDBs in Singapore? If you love today's episode, definitely follow us on the Coconut Avenue and share them with your loved ones. Help us get a bigger reach. We want to grow our audience, and yeah, let's all grow together. So take it over, Troy.
As you progress along your property journey, you might jump from a HDB to a condo. But is a 99 leasehold condo really a big difference from HDBs? Because I'm sure you have heard about people comparing between HDBs and condos. People say that HDBs are the cheapskate cousins of such condos, and there's no point getting into them. How true is that? There's so much noise affecting how you make your decision. So how do you position yourself safely in your next move and maybe profit through your jump? Welcome back to another day on the Coconut Avenue. Join us as we explore various property insights, investment strategies, and challenging property myths out there today. We'll be bringing on investors and experts in the game to share with us their insights and stories to better prepare us for our journey. Whether you're looking at your first property or building a bucket of gold through properties, there's something for you here. Ultimately, it's about helping you find your unique game plan. Maureen is here with the Chief Financial Coconut, Reggie, and I, to carry on where she left off last week. Ready to learn more? Let's go!
Okay, welcome back. And in episode 1, if you've not heard it, definitely head over, listen to episode 1. And Maureen is quite a big proponent of HDB. Contrary to popular belief, not everybody is so pro HDB. But in our discussion, she definitely talked about how you should sell after an extended period of time. Right, about 5 years, that's the benchmark. And then convert it to a private property. And in my head, it's like, if HDB was so good, right? Why don't you just hold it lah? Right, so we're back today with Maureen and Troy to just kind of understand why, we should go into a private property, right? And yeah, let's go.
Okay. Actually, on that perspective on HDB itself, like being 99 years, I don't know why it's such a shock, Reggie, that suddenly everyone come to realize that, oh, my HDB is 99 years, it's going to expire worthless. It's always been the case. There has never been a policy to say that, hey, we guarantee we're going to buy it back from you. So HDB by default should be treated almost exactly the same as a 99-year leasehold condo. So people always think, oh, by the end of my condo time, there's going to be en bloc, or no, who says? Someone might not be interested in unblocking your place, right?
Yeah.
So it's exactly the same issue.
Woodlands.
Correct.
Maybe in the future, Woodlands is
Maybe
good.
it might be very popular back
sorry
then.
to all my Woodland friends.
But it's the same thing. So the perspective to look at, first and foremost, in the professional investment world, no matter how people look at it, I know that there's been a lot of controversial talk about the fact that if you buy a 99-year leasehold condo, in fact, the appreciation over time, it can be a very good investment, blah, blah. All that is true, right, if you analyze the data. But in saying that, if you look at the professional world of property investment, all the people that I know of, especially for their own private collection, so I'm not talking about major funds who invest it for funds purposes, just for private collection, still prefer freehold. For the precise reason that once you buy it, it's perpetual. You can give it to your grandchild, you can do whatever, it's yours. Whereas leasehold is for a period of 99 years. There's an expiry date. Is it considered rental? It's a long-term lease, right? If you want to call it that way.
Long-term, technical
Yes,
truth. Okay.
Correct. And the thing is that they budget it in such a way. I think that there's somebody clever. This is not facts. This is just Maureen's imagination. That there is somebody out there who is very clever who say, why don't we just make it for 99 years? Because by then they will be all dead, and then they would think that it's kind of like perpetual anyway, when it's not, right? So that I think that's how they view it. But in actual fact, it's still 99 years. So it should be treated the same. So the way that I look at leasehold property, so whether it be HDB or leasehold, is the same. I can go into it if it makes money, but my perspective is it's going to be a short-term hold, right? I will always find a point in time I will trade out of it. It's never a long-term play, right? It's only a short-term play. But would I buy it? Yes, I would, especially if it makes money. But my perspective is always the same. You do not buy it with the intention of holding for a long-term period. In fact, your position should be, I hold it just long enough to make money, and also to let the next person who buy it from me to make money. It's not about being kind or whatever. It makes sense. Like, you want to give somebody something that is in demand, right? If you squeeze the orange, who wants to buy it, right? They want some things left so that when they buy
Unless
it, it
they
still
sell
makes
the
sense.
pill. There's a Chinese medical store. They sell pill.
Right. So you want to leave some fats there so that, they can also utilize that
So that
period.
you can sell that house as well.
Correct. And so I always recommend, like, young people when they enter into HDB, I said 5 to 20 years and below. Why? 30 years and beyond, right? So from 0 to 30 years, beyond 30 years, the Bala depreciation, or the rate of depreciation of a leasehold property, start to take up in speed. So they get faster and faster, the depreciation rate. Between 0 and 30, it starts to accelerate, but not at the same rate as after 30 years. So that's why I always ask people to invest during this band of time. But why 20 years? It's because it's good to leave at least 10 years for the next person, right? So that they've got some time left.
Yeah.
And also, taking into account, obviously, leasehold property, banks are not dumb. They also adjust their lending criteria once you've got less and less year left. And that means that if it means that I have to have a lot of cash in order to buy this property versus if I can just take the loan from the bank, it reduces the demand. Remember, I always say, coming back to demand, what will create the most demand for your property? And that's what's going to make sense, right?
So if more cash up front, then lesser people can
Yes.
buy that. So your pool shrinks.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And you talk about the Bala again
Yes,
and
yes,
again and
yes,
again, right?
yes.
So I don't know who this Bala is, right? I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, no one knows who Bala is, by the way. He's just this really smart guy who came up with a table for how you should calculate the rate of depreciation. But a lot of people read the Bala and they got the wrong impression. They think that, today is 400,000, tomorrow is 399. It doesn't work like that, because Bala table only calculate the rate of depreciation, but naturally Singapore land traditionally also have an appreciation factor that is taken into account, which is why I think in the last episode we talk about, like, older generation, they buy a place for 40,000, and then at the end of it, it's like worth 400. And you say, but Maureen, if Bala clicks in, it should depreciate, right? It should be like worth like 20 by then. It's because as Bala take into effect, there is also like the land appreciation in value of that place that the uncle bought that takes into account as well. So it's like a two-line of effect that takes place. So he is increasing in value still, but towards the end of his leasehold, that increase is slowing down because the depreciation factor start to take effect. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It makes sense. I
Yeah.
get it. So essentially what you're saying is that because from Bala's observation, right? So I'm assuming this is an observation
Yes.
kind of thing, right?
Yes.
You plot data over time,
Got
and
it.
this is what you see, right? So from Bala's viewpoint, by 30 years, rate of change will increase, right? That
Correct.
means the depreciation becomes more serious
Correct.
than the first 30 years. But also because Singapore as a city has, higher and higher demand for property because we're
Correct.
packing more and more people in
Correct.
limited land space.
Right.
So then the growth of land value outshines that
Correct.
Bala, decline, which is why the
Correct.
net at the end of the 30 years, at least for the first 30, 40 years, with all
Correct.
the first batch of HDB buyers,
Correct.
which is why they are very, pro-establishment.
Yes.
First 30, 40 years, they make their money because
Correct.
of the land growth outrunning the Bala.
Correct.
coefficient.
Now, if assuming by the end of year 0, right, government don't compulsory buy back your place or take back the place, by right there should be some value still to the land, right? It's just that because at that point in time, the rental, if you want to put it that way, the rental lease period expire, so then you no longer have the rights over the property, and therefore it become worthless from that perspective. But so I think that it's very wrong to then say that, then HDB is not worthwhile buying. It is still a very good strategy, I think. Yeah.
You mentioned that in episode 1 that in the past, people earn money through HDB, a lot of them.
Yes.
But in the future, we should not just focus on HDB, but we should use HDB as a jumping board into condo. You are still able to get that appreciation, but it's just not solely focused on HDB.
Correct. I think that when the government made the announcement that, hey, we are not going to guarantee that we're going to buy back HDB from you, what they essentially did is that they just crystallized the thought for people. It's always there. It's always the same. So that's something that they are now more aware than before. And yes, you can use HDB as a leverage into condo, but the other thing is also, mind you, the number of multi-millionaire friends that I've got who live in HDB is countless.
Yep, I get what you.
So then it begs the question of these people are not dumb. Why are they doing it? Because there are certain value to HDB. So if you view it that your house is not an asset from the perspective of, or it can give you lots of income, right? By right, if you're a very savvy investor, you should buy HDB from the perspective of you need minimal entry price, but it allows you to stay in a comfortable place. It can accumulate some equity, but I'm going to leave the pot of my goal and invest in worthwhile property outside so that I can lease it out to people that mix where my wealth is. You get that?
I get what you're saying,
Yes.
but I'm just not sure if it still exists at this point in time, because before that, there was a period of time where there were not serious taxation from multiple property ownership.
Stamp
Right.
duties.
Right,
Right.
all the duties, right? Duties
Right.
are getting very serious. I think
Right.
there was a period of time they were trying to curb, because prices were just going whoo, whoo, whoo. It's like, who is buying all this? Right? But clearly there are a lot of buyers, and prices were just going so fast.
Right.
And stamp duties came in.
Right.
Right. So then the theory holds, right, in terms of owning a affordable place and then, deploying your cash
Yes.
somewhere else to then
Right.
make that money, right? And
Right.
I do have a lot of friends with families that are like that.
Right.
Right? But does it still work now at this point in time?
That's a very good thing that you touch on. So you're talking about the ABSD kicking in after whatever, right? So business people or investor are always going to work around policies. They're going to find ways around it. So the way that a lot of the savvy investor, what they're doing is, of course, then there's although this doesn't work as much as before, they buy a property, the wife buy, and then they even use children, family, and even the most wealthy people that I know still continue to do that.
That's why they're wealthy.
Yeah, correct. They will
find
find
strategies
ways.
to
They
do
will
it,
find
yeah.
ways to get that place at that price without the ABSD, right? But the other thing is also that actually by default also drive up the property value of commercial properties. Because with commercial property, I don't need to pay ABSD, I can just trade that. So there are avenue around it, and they're still going to deploy that money. They're just going to deploy an asset that allows them to still generate the income and all that stuff. So Reggie, it actually still works.
And maybe for the more general population who are not that savvy, maybe this ABSD serves as a deterrence for speculation.
Correct.
They have to be really do more research into seeing that if you add that 12% ABSD, will you still earn when you sell?
Correct.
Sorry for being slow. I just got it. Okay, but when you were saying about commercial property, I was like, why Maureen thought about commercial property? Okay, now I get it, because you can invest in commercial property.
Yes.
It's not that you have to buy everything residential,
Correct.
right? So it's still the same idea.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
I get it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And the important thing to catch is that people are asking me. People always say, "Hey, Mr. Lee, Mr. Ang, Mr. Teo, very rich. Why are they staying in HDB?" Because HDB is very accessible, very cheap. And then if they know that it's not an asset, it won't generate cash flow. Yes, it will still accumulate equity over time versus me leasing, right? Or Mr. Ang, whatever, leasing. So they'll just deploy their cash into investment. And that is a very clever way of doing it. So don't discount HDB, right? Don't discount. It's still a very good policy.
Wow, I get it. Then we really need to ring HDB. Hello HDB, 你要不要 sponsor? I get the idea, right?
Yeah.
Which the original idea of how HDB flats are being priced is really to kind of give everybody a social housing,
Correct.
kind of thing.
Correct.
And then over time, it became some sort of wealth distribution platform also for a
Yes.
lot of people. And I think based on what you have put forth, it's still very much the case, where it is a low entry point where people can just partake. Yes, you can be very, regardless of your political affinity, the reality is, HDB is still a very, very affordable benchmark for you to kickstart and go in and accumulate your wealth. And then after that, you switch over to
Correct.
something that is of a freehold structure, right? And
Right.
and based on that freehold thing, I just want to kind of share with you guys that if you think about it, if something compounds year on year over time, then of course the freehold one will compound forever because timeline is infinite.
Correct,
right?
correct, correct. I think, Reggie, you touched on a very clever point. I mean, there are data analysis, even agents telling you that actually leasehold make more money than freehold. Yes, to some extent, because if the entry price is right, it's not like, freehold only make money, but leasehold doesn't, especially in condo format. But you touched on a very good point. It's because freehold, people are still willing to buy that, even though it appear on paper like it makes less money initially. It's because you get to the accumulation
Long term.
is long term. Yeah. The only thing with that is that when you start buying airspace, right? Let's say you buy condo, it's freehold and it's airspace. You need to understand that at some point your building is going to deteriorate to such an extent that you can't really live there anymore, or it's not in demand purely because people don't want to live in such an old place, right? When you have got all your neighbors, and it's very hard to consolidate everybody to say we agree to renovate this particular infrastructure, right?
Golden Mile.
Correct. Like, oh my gosh. And this is like, so many places are like this, right? It's so hard to, but it's still worth value. It's still worth something because the land has continued to appreciate over time. So there lies the value and the beauty of freehold property. And I think you are spot on.
Thank you. Yeah, and especially Golden Mile, guys. I think Golden Mile has went out of fashion and came back in fashion because it's like so retro, right? It's like so old school now. It's like, damn, this place is a thing. And they decided to make it into a heritage space now, right? So when you heritagize it, right? I don't know what was that. Like, you make a heritage space, then it adds on to the cultural value. And I mean,
Right.
we are currently at like Amoy Street, right?
Right,
Telok
right,
Ayer
right, right,
area.
right.
And this whole area is also the same situation,
Correct,
right?
correct.
Heritage space, and
Correct.
there's a different way of evaluating this space
Correct.
altogether, right? And,
Correct,
and
correct.
fundamentally, I think you've established the idea that HDBs are considered properties.
Yes.
Okay, well, that was very
Yes.
Very resounding yes.
Yeah, very
Yes.
resounding yes, right? So
Yeah, and I think that if you I went to Hong Kong a few years ago, and I was getting into a cab of this uncle who's like clearly in his 60s, and he's still working multiple jobs. And I asked him, "Hey, uncle, why are you working so hard?" He said that I haven't finished paying off my place because in Hong Kong, the property prices are high. It takes them forever to pay off that little space that they've got, which is not even.
you wanted to use square, right?
Yeah.
I was like, space, actually more like square. I've been
Yeah,
to my friend's
correct.
place in Hong Kong. It's really like a square. My God.
Correct. And I think that we don't know how blessed we are in Singapore. Like our entry price is really, really affordable. And the government ensure that, hey, even worst case scenario, young couple, you can get your own house. And that house, even, it will allow you to have some form of saving. Like it or not, it will allow you to have some form of saving in there. And they allow you to use CPF as well. I think the policy put up by the government in Singapore is just phenomenal. It's great.
Fair. Can you vote?
Yeah, no, I can't. I'm a PR, so this is not a plug.
I could already sense the affinity. But
Yeah.
I get it. So what we have established is that HDB is a property, and there is a difference between HDB and a private property in terms of 99 years lease. And there is also another tier of difference between the freehold, and the 99-year hold, in terms of condominium. Right. So ultimately it's a what you are telling us is it is a step by step, right? You enter the HDB first, right? And then you flip over to partake in the private space, right?
Correct.
Which if you can, you can go for freehold. But if you can't, then a leasehold is okay.
Well, Reggie, actually, there isn't a lot of price difference. I mean, correction. The leasehold and freehold, the variance in price is not so great that one would choose leasehold because it's a lot cheaper or whatever else. I mean, really, you would still do it. It still comes down to an investment. And really, what I'm also saying is that HDB and leasehold, condo, the perspective that one should view it is not that much difference in terms of the time limitation of in the investment. However, what a private condo will allow you to do is that it allows you to obviously leverage, and then you can, you can use the equity to then buy other property with it, which HDB doesn't allow you to do that because the government introduced HDB as a way so that people can live in it, right? But it's still a false sense of saving. It's still a way for you to accumulate equity. But beyond HDB, really, there's no hard and fast rule whether one should go into leasehold or freehold. But all I'm saying is that there are rules, like the entry price and all the other things still make sense for you to accumulate wealth inside private space. But you just need to know that should you choose after HDB to move into a leasehold, you need to move out at some stage as well. You can't stay in the leasehold space forever. The same effect that is taking place in HDB still affect the leasehold condo space because it's still 99 years. So at some stage, you still need to trade out of that and go into another space. Yeah.
And then we will talk about the buy price, all this kind of stuff.
Correct.
Further down, right?
Correct.
That's gonna be
correct.
like, woo, sexy.
Correct. But really, just to give an insight, I mean, for my own mastermind group, like I always say to them, if you can afford, I mean, the ultimate dream is to own like a landed freehold property in Singapore, like a house. And then they always say to me, oh, but it's so unaffordable, it's so expensive. Actually, no. One of the, there are so many places in Singapore where you have freehold landed property, they're selling like 2 million or ish. So over time, when you reach the age of, let's say, 40 plus, this is almost the same as a condo, right? Like, so I think that it's definitely accessible. So that's what I'll be betting on. That's what I would like. That's the ultimate dream if there's such a thing.
So the ultimate dream would be to then ultimately land yourself in a freehold landed property.
Correct.
Right, which is where I just walked past yesterday at Coven.
Yeah.
That's a nice area. Okay, so
Yeah.
Any other things to add, guys? I think HDB is a very contentious
It is.
discussion.
It is. But you just need to know what the element is. It will expire, just like a leasehold condo will also expire. It is a very good full sense of saving. It allows people to enter, and that needs to be the value of that needs to be extracted. And also government give you grants for buying HDB, and for young couple, that needs to also be exploited. You need to know that. And so those are the elements that people need to be aware of. It's just that HDB, it doesn't allow you to draw down on the equity. That's obviously not a very good thing with HDB.
You can't leverage.
You can't leverage. And so those are the elements that you need to be aware of. But outside of that, it's still a very good form of saving. It still allows you to accumulate equity. So don't sneeze on it. Don't think that it's a poor cousin or whatever. It's a very good form of property, I think.
Actually, from the mainstream news or from the mainstream side, that people are always propagating that the HDB
Correct.
fear myths.
Correct.
Like it will go down to zero.
Correct.
So we don't really hear, from your perspective, from this perspective, a lot.
Correct.
And we understand now that there are actually many different variables that we need to consider and mindsets.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Exactly.
Cool. And I think that's a lot of stuff for HDB. And I think we've established exactly what you said, right? Let's not discount the very fact that there is this entry point, right? Because it is unique to Singapore.
Yes.
Right? That is the truth, because I've lived abroad before, and that's not the case for my friends. Most of them are renting all the way to like 30 plus
Correct.
today, right? Because prices are crazy, right? Whether it's in KL, whether it's in Hong Kong, whether it's in China, different places.
Yes.
So HDB is that benchmark and that jumping board for all of us.
Yes.
Right. And if we can, we meet the requirements. Of course, if we don't, then we continue to lobby to meet the requirements. But if we meet the requirements, then we, shouldn't discount this very platform for us to partake in the property market. And in due time, we can definitely, move up and get ourselves into, more and more sexy properties. Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for taking time to tune in today, guys. I hope you have learned a little bit more about property investing. If you feel like you've benefited from this podcast, do share this with your loved ones, and also do follow us on all our socials and join our community Telegram group and tell us what you're interested to know about next. Everything is in the description below. Have a great day ahead, guys, and always remember, when we are better prepared, the next opportunity is just around the corner. See you next week. Condos are more atas, that's true. A lot of facilities and all, but really, how many of you guys really use the facilities often? I'm not saying condos are bad or good. I mean, to each his own or her own lah. But sometimes I just think that there are a lot of different types of biases informing decisions. I believe we all need to focus on the inherent biases that we have before purchasing properties. Maybe I'll talk about the bias in detail in future episodes. But basically, my takeaway in this episode is that it's wrong to think that buying into condos is more profitable than HDBs, because there are a lot of people out there who are losing money when they buy condos, and you don't really hear them lah. The overwhelming story is that, you buy condos, wait for it to appreciate in the future and you will gain money. But all the people who are losing money, they too paiseh to tell people they lose money already, right? So you don't hear from it lah. But it's not possible that everyone earns money. Maureen also said that the only difference between 99 years leasehold condo and HDBs, or we should say the only benefit, is that in 99 years leasehold condo, you can get leverage. But in HDBs, you can't. And whether you buy a HDB or 99 years lease condo, it's recommended to get into a property before 20 years old, because then you have some time for it to appreciate if it does. And it's not too old when you sell it. So you can't just buy into any property, and you can't just say you want to buy new properties every time. Sometimes you can't get a deal for a new property. And of course, there are other metrics to look at, especially demand, because when a strong demand is there, it can even overpower a depreciating property due to age. And definitely you need a good agent that can go through what your needs are and go through all the matrix with you, not an agent that tells you every project can make money. But we'll talk about this in future episodes. I think what Maureen has mentioned clearly is that it's really dangerous to assume that going to a private property will earn you more money than HDB, or even assume that all condo will hit the stage of being en bloc and then you can earn a big sum in a short time. Nobody knows when it's going to get en bloc. Nobody can say for sure. So yeah, that's a risk that you have to take if you are looking to buy into that. So that's what I learned in this episode. So tell us what you learned in this episode in our Telegram group. Discussion is over there. It's waiting for you to exchange opinions, exchange your stories. It's great to know you guys are listening to this and liking it. See you in the next episode. Signing out.
So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. The Coconut Avenue is something that I really want to push, because I think that there is like a huge gap in the market when it comes to property investing. We're going to run one season. It's been very hard producing this season because a lot of property investors do not have incentive to talk. They don't need to tell you, right? There is no... it's not like you can join their fund, or it's very hard for them to raise funds from the retail guys with all this like legal stuff. And yeah, most of the time when they buy a property, there's only one, right? Or there's only a row of them, right? So that's limited, and they don't really want to talk as much. It's been very hard wooing these guys to come on and talk, and we're amazed that we managed to, pull some of these guys, and also some casual investors who own like 2 or 3 properties and are doing their own thing. So very happy that they decided to come on to talk. And I think it's a great podcast that you should check it out. And of course, kudos to Troy, for trying out. So he's a listener, turned a podcaster, and it's been very hard on him to like kind of learn this whole process and just kind of refine himself. So that's great, right? And if you want to be a podcaster and you have something in this whole like personal finance space you're interested, also ring us up, right? Email us at hello@thefinancialcoconut.com and we can like maybe see what we can do together, right? So follow the Coconut Avenue and help us spread the word. It's been a difficult process, but definitely something that you will learn a lot from, right? So head over now and I'll see you next week.